The morning sun cast long shadows across the training grounds of Fort Henderson as buses filled with nervous recruits pulled through the main gates. Among the sea of anxious faces pressed against windows was Maya Chen, a slight 22-year-old woman who clutched a worn duffel bag containing everything she owned. Unlike the others who seemed to be questioning their life choices, Maya sat quietly with an expression of calm determination that would have surprised anyone who knew her background. Maya had grown up in a small apartment above her grandmother's laundromat in Chinatown. Her childhood was filled with the constant hum of washing machines and the smell of detergent. Not exactly the typical preparation for military life that most people would imagine. Her grandmother, who had fled China during the war, had raised her with stories of resilience and survival. But what no one knew, not even her closest friends, was that Maya had been preparing for this moment her entire life. As a child, while other kids played video games, Maya would sneak into the local library and devour military history books. She studied famous battles, tactical maneuvers, and leadership strategies with the intensity of a scholar. Her bedroom walls were covered not with posters of pop stars, but with hand-drawn maps of historical battlefields and charts showing military ranks and insignia. She had taught herself basic military protocols by watching documentaries and reading training manuals she found online. The bus lurched to a stop, and the doors opened with a hiss. Immediately, the air was filled with the booming voice of Drill Sergeant Rodriguez, an intimidating man whose presence seemed to fill the entire courtyard. His uniform was crisp, his boots polished to a mirror shine, and his voice carried the authority of someone who had seen real combat. "Listen up, maggots!" he roared as the recruits stumbled off the buses, dragging their bags and looking around with wide eyes. "For the next 12 weeks, your sorry lives belong to me. You will eat when I tell you to eat, sleep when I tell you to sleep, and breathe when I give you permission." Maya stepped off the bus with the fluid grace of someone who had practiced the movement 1,000 times in her mind. While other recruits fumbled with their belongings and looked around in confusion, she immediately stood at attention in the exact position she had memorized from military manuals. Her posture was perfect, her eyes focused straight ahead, and her hands positioned precisely at her sides. Sergeant Rodriguez continued his intimidation routine, pacing back and forth in front of the group like a predator sizing up prey. "Most of you will wash out before week 6. You'll cry for your mommies and beg to go home. But those few who survive will become soldiers worthy of defending this great nation." The other recruits shifted nervously, some already looking like they regretted their decision to enlist. There was Tommy Morrison, a farm boy from Kansas who looked strong but completely out of his element. Jessica Williams, a college graduate who had joined to pay off student loans, stood with her shoulders hunched in anxiety. Marcus Johnson, who had enlisted to escape a rough neighborhood in Detroit, tried to look tough, but his hands were visibly shaking. Maya remained perfectly still, her breathing steady and controlled. She had practiced meditation and breathing exercises for years, knowing that mental composure would be just as important as physical fitness. While others around her fidgeted and whispered, she maintained her position with the discipline of a seasoned soldier. "You there!" Sergeant Rodriguez suddenly stopped directly in front of Maya, his face inches from hers. His voice was designed to break down confidence and test resolve. "What's your name, recruit?" "Maya Chen, sir," she responded with perfect volume and clarity, her voice carrying none of the tremor that characterized most of the other responses that day. "You think you're special, Chen?" Rodriguez asked, his eyes scanning her small frame with obvious skepticism. "You think because you can stand still for 30 seconds you're ready to be a soldier?" "No, sir. I am here to learn and serve, sir," Maya replied without hesitation, maintaining eye contact in a way that was respectful but showed no fear. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow slightly. Most recruits either cowered under his scrutiny or tried to act tough and ended up looking foolish. This young woman showed neither response. Instead, she displayed a quiet confidence that was unusual for someone on their first day of basic training. The sergeant moved on to terrorize other recruits, but Maya caught him glancing back at her several times during his initial speech. She could sense that she had already distinguished herself, though she knew that standing out too early could be both an advantage and a target on her back. The first day continued with a whirlwind of activities designed to overwhelm and disorient new recruits. They were issued uniforms, assigned bunks, given medical examinations, and subjected to a constant stream of shouted orders and time pressure. Most recruits struggled to keep up, arriving late to formations, forgetting equipment, or failing to follow simple directions under stress. Maya moved through each activity with systematic efficiency. When they were told to organize their footlockers according to military specifications, she completed the task in half the time it took others, with each item placed in perfect alignment. During the uniform fitting, she already knew her measurements and the proper way to wear each piece of equipment. When they were given their first meal in the mess hall, she ate quickly but properly, finishing her food and cleaning her tray while others were still figuring out the cafeteria procedures. Her bunk was in a dormitory-style building with 40 other female recruits. The room buzzed with nervous chatter as young women from all walks of life tried to process their new reality. Some were calling their families on contraband cell phones, others were crying quietly into their pillows, and a few were trying to establish social groups for comfort and protection. Maya quietly organized her personal space with military precision. Her bed was made with hospital corners that could bounce a quarter. Her few personal items were arranged according to regulations she had memorized, and her uniforms were hung with mathematical spacing. She completed these tasks while others were still trying to figure out how to open their footlockers. "Hey, how do you know how to do all this stuff?" asked Sarah Martinez, the recruit in the bunk next to Maya's. Sarah was a former waitress from Phoenix who had joined the military after losing her job during an economic downturn. Maya paused in her organizing and offered a small smile. "I've been reading about military procedures for a long time. I wanted to be prepared." "Reading about it?" Sarah laughed nervously. "I thought I was prepared because I watched a few war movies. You're making the rest of us look bad." Several other recruits gathered around, drawn by curiosity about the young woman who seemed to have everything figured out. They peppered her with questions about military protocols, but Maya was careful not to show off or make others feel inadequate. She offered helpful tips while downplaying her extensive knowledge. "The key is just paying attention to details," she explained while demonstrating how to properly fold a uniform shirt. "The sergeants tell us exactly what they want. We just have to listen carefully and follow instructions." What Maya didn't share was the depth of her preparation. She had spent years studying not just military procedures but leadership psychology, physical fitness science, and tactical thinking. She had practiced military-style physical training in secret, running at dawn through city parks and doing bodyweight exercises in her grandmother's basement. She had even learned basic first aid and survival skills through online courses and library books. As lights out approached, the dormitory fell into an uneasy quiet broken only by occasional sniffles and whispered phone calls. Maya lay in her perfectly made bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the sounds of 40 young women trying to cope with the biggest change of their lives. She thought about her grandmother who had worked 16-hour days in the laundromat to provide for their small family. Her grandmother had never complained about the hardships she faced, never spoke about the family she had lost in China, and never showed anything but quiet strength in the face of adversity. Maya had inherited that same inner steel, but she had also spent years sharpening it into something that could serve a larger purpose. The next morning came with the jarring sound of reveille at 0500 hours. Most recruits jolted awake in confusion, stumbling around in the dark and struggling to understand what was expected of them. Maya had been awake for 10 minutes already, having trained herself to wake up naturally before any alarm. She was fully dressed and standing at attention beside her perfectly made bed when Drill Sergeant Rodriguez entered the dormitory. "Good morning, ladies," he bellowed, his voice echoing off the walls. "You have exactly 15 minutes to get dressed, make your beds, and form up outside for morning physical training. Move! Move! Move!" The dormitory exploded into chaos. Women crashed into each other in the dark, searching for uniforms and trying to make sense of unfamiliar clothing. Some couldn't find their boots. Others put their uniforms on backward, and several were on the verge of panic attacks as they struggled with the time pressure. Maya remained calm in the center of the storm. She quietly helped Sarah find her missing sock, showed Jessica the correct way to lace military boots, and demonstrated the proper bed-making technique to 3 other recruits. Her movements were efficient and purposeful, never rushing but somehow accomplishing everything that needed to be done. When the 15 minutes were up, about half the recruits were still struggling with various aspects of their morning routine. Maya stood in perfect formation outside the dormitory, her uniform crisp and properly worn, her posture exact, and her breathing controlled. She had been ready for 12 minutes. Sergeant Rodriguez walked slowly down the line of assembled recruits, noting with obvious displeasure the various uniform infractions, incomplete preparations, and general signs of confusion. When he reached Maya, he stopped for a moment longer than usual, his experienced eye scanning for any flaw in her appearance or bearing.
He found none. "Well, well," he said quietly, just loud enough for nearby recruits to hear. "It seems we have at least one person who managed to follow simple instructions. The rest of you, take a good look at Recruit Chen." This is what military bearing looks like. Maya felt the eyes of her fellow recruits on her, some admiring, others resentful. She had learned from her military history studies that standing out too much too early could create problems with peer relationships, but she also knew that half measures would serve no one. She was here to become the best soldier possible, and that meant meeting every standard with excellence. The first physical training session was designed to assess baseline fitness levels and begin the process of building military conditioning. The recruits were led to a large field where various exercise stations had been set up. Sergeant Rodriguez was joined by two other drill instructors, Staff Sergeant Kim and Sergeant First Class Thompson, both of whom looked like they could run marathons before breakfast. "Listen up," Rodriguez commanded. "We're going to start with basic calisthenics to see what we're working with. Push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. This isn't a competition today, it's an assessment. Do your best, but don't try to be heroes." The push-up test came first. Most recruits managed between 10 and 25 repetitions before their arms gave out. Some of the more athletic women reached 30 or 35. When it was Maya's turn, she assumed the perfect push-up position and began a steady, controlled rhythm that showed no signs of strain or fatigue. 25, 30, 40, 50. Other recruits had stopped their own exercises to watch as Maya continued with machine-like precision. Her form never wavered, her breathing remained steady, and her pace never slowed. At 75 push-ups, Sergeant Rodriguez called a halt, though Maya showed no signs of reaching her limit. "That's enough, Chen," he said, his voice carefully neutral but his eyes showing genuine surprise. "Save some energy for the rest of the assessment." The sit-up test produced similar results. While most recruits struggled to reach 50 repetitions, Maya completed over 100 with the same mechanical precision she had shown with push-ups. Her core strength was clearly exceptional, and her technique was flawless. But it was during the 2-mile run that Maya truly distinguished herself. Most recruits started too fast and faded badly in the second mile, walking significant portions of the course. The more fit ones managed to maintain a steady jog throughout. Maya settled into a pace that looked effortless, her breathing controlled, her stride efficient, and her posture perfect. She finished the 2-mile run in 13 minutes and 47 seconds, nearly 2 minutes faster than the next closest recruit, and well under the time required for soldiers with years of training. When she crossed the finish line, she wasn't even breathing hard. While other recruits collapsed on the ground or bent over gasping for air, Maya stood at attention, waiting for further instructions. The 3 drill instructors exchanged glances that didn't go unnoticed by the observant recruits. In 20-plus years of training new soldiers, they had rarely seen a first-day recruit perform at levels that would be impressive for someone finishing basic training. "Chen," Sergeant Rodriguez called out after all recruits had finished the run. "Where did you train before coming here?" "I didn't train anywhere special, Drill Sergeant," Maya replied honestly. "I just tried to stay in good physical condition." "Just tried to stay in good condition?" Staff Sergeant Kim interjected, looking skeptical. "Those numbers suggest serious athletic training. What sports did you play?" "I didn't play organized sports, Staff Sergeant. I just exercised on my own." The answer was technically true, though it didn't capture the intensity and dedication of Maya's self-designed training program. For years, she had followed workout routines based on military fitness manuals, pushing herself through dawn runs, bodyweight exercises, and endurance challenges that most people would find punishing. As the day continued with more orientation activities, Maya's performance remained consistently exceptional. During weapons familiarization, she absorbed information about rifle components and safety procedures with perfect retention. When they practiced military courtesies and customs, her salutes were crisp and her knowledge of proper protocols was complete. In every activity, she demonstrated competence that typically took weeks or months to develop. Word began to spread among the recruit population about the small woman who seemed to excel effortlessly at everything military. Some recruits were inspired by her example, working harder to match her standards. Others felt intimidated or resentful,
wondering if she was making them all look bad by comparison. Maya was aware of the attention she was attracting, both positive and negative. She had studied military leadership and group dynamics extensively, understanding that her situation required careful navigation. She needed to maintain her high standards, while also building positive relationships with her fellow recruits and avoiding the perception that she thought herself superior. That evening, during a brief period of free time before lights out, Maya found herself approached by a group of struggling recruits who were clearly overwhelmed by their first day of military life. They asked for help with everything from uniform preparation to exercise techniques, and Maya willingly shared her knowledge while being careful to position herself as a peer rather than an instructor. "The key to push-ups is keeping your core tight," she explained to Jessica, who had managed only 8 repetitions during the morning assessment. "Think about holding a plank position and then just moving your arms. Your back should stay straight the whole time." "How do you know all this stuff?" Marcus Johnson asked, joining the group. Despite his initial tough guy attitude, he had struggled with several aspects of the day's training and was clearly frustrated. "I spent a lot of time reading and practicing," Maya replied simply. "My grandmother always said that preparation prevents poor performance." "Your grandmother sounds like a drill sergeant." Sarah laughed, and the tension in the group eased slightly. "In some ways, she was tougher than any drill sergeant," Maya said with genuine affection. "She survived things that would break most people, and she never complained once. She taught me that you can overcome anything if you're willing to work hard enough." As the conversation continued, Maya found herself naturally falling into a mentoring role with her fellow recruits. She offered practical tips for surviving basic training while also listening to their concerns and fears. Her approach was supportive rather than condescending, and gradually the group began to see her as an ally rather than competition. However, not all reactions to Maya's exceptional performance were positive. A small group of recruits, led by a woman named Jennifer Walsh who had expected to be among the top performers, viewed Maya's success with suspicion and resentment. Jennifer had been a star athlete in high school and had assumed that her natural athleticism would make her stand out in military training. "There's something weird about that Chen girl," Jennifer muttered to her friends during evening personal time. "Nobody just shows up knowing how to do everything perfectly. She's probably lying about her background. Maybe she's just naturally good at this stuff," suggested Rebecca, one of Jennifer's followers, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced either. "Natural talent doesn't explain knowing exact military protocols," Jennifer replied. "I think she's been to military school or something and she's just not telling anyone. She's trying to make the rest of us look bad." These whispered conversations represented a growing undercurrent of tension that Maya sensed but couldn't directly address. She had anticipated that her performance might create jealousy or suspicion, but she also knew that hiding her abilities would serve no useful purpose. She was in the military to become the best soldier possible, not to manage other people's insecurities. As the first week of basic training continued, Maya's exceptional abilities became even more apparent. During drill and ceremony practice, she mastered complex marching maneuvers on the first try, while others struggled with basic steps. In classroom sessions on military history and values, her questions showed depth of knowledge that impressed even the instructors. During field exercises, she demonstrated intuitive understanding of tactical concepts that typically required extensive explanation. The drill instructors found themselves in an unusual situation. They were accustomed to gradually building skills and confidence in recruits over 12 weeks of intensive training. Maya seemed to arrive with capabilities that exceeded many of their intermediate benchmarks, yet she maintained the humble, teachable attitude that made her a pleasure to instruct. "I've been doing this for 15 years. Staff Sergeant Kim confided to Sergeant Rodriguez during a private moment. "I've never seen anything like this. She's not just physically gifted. She understands military thinking at a level that should take years to develop. The question is whether she can maintain it," Rodriguez replied thoughtfully. "Basic training gets harder every week. Physical fitness is just the foundation. We'll see how she handles real pressure." Maya was indeed about to face her first real test of character and capability. The following week would introduce combat skills training, advanced physical challenges, and leadership exercises that would push every recruit to their absolute limits. For the first time since arriving at Fort Henderson, Maya would discover whether her years of preparation had truly prepared her for the realities of military service. The foundation had been laid, and both her supporters and skeptics were watching closely to see if the young woman who had mastered every drill in minutes could continue to exceed expectations when the stakes were raised and the challenges became truly demanding. The second week of basic training began with an announcement that sent ripples of anxiety through the recruit population. Sergeant Rodriguez stood before the assembled formation with his characteristic stern expression, but there was something different in his demeanor. A hint of anticipation that suggested the real challenges were about to begin. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice carrying across the morning formation, "your honeymoon period is officially over. This week we begin combat skills training, advanced physical conditioning, and leadership assessment. Some of you will discover strengths you didn't know you possessed. Others will learn that military service isn't the adventure they imagined." The recruits exchanged nervous glances, but Maya remained focused straight ahead, her mind already processing the implications of what lay ahead. She had studied combat training methodologies extensively and understood that this phase would test not just physical capabilities, but mental resilience, tactical thinking, and the ability to function under extreme stress. The first challenge came in the form of hand-to-hand combat instruction. The recruits were led to a gymnasium equipped with practice mats and training equipment that looked designed to inflict maximum discomfort during the learning process. Master Sergeant Williams, a compact man whose scarred hands suggested extensive fighting experience, would be their primary instructor. "Combat isn't about being tough," Williams began, pacing in front of the assembled recruits. "It's about being smart, fast, and decisive. Today we start with basic defensive techniques. Tomorrow we move to offensive capabilities. By the end of the week, you'll know enough to protect yourself and neutralize threats." The instruction began with fundamental stances and movements. Most recruits struggled with the awkward positioning required for effective combat techniques, their civilian muscle memory fighting against military training. They stumbled through basic blocks and counters, looking clumsy and uncertain as they tried to absorb completely unfamiliar concepts. Maya approached the training with the same systematic intensity she had shown in previous activities. However, this time she faced a genuine challenge. Unlike physical fitness or military protocols, which she could study from books and practice alone, combat techniques required real-time adaptation and the ability to respond to unpredictable opponents. When Williams demonstrated a basic defensive sequence, Maya absorbed the instruction with complete focus, her eyes tracking every movement and her mind analyzing the biomechanics involved. When her turn came to practice, she executed the technique with precision that drew immediate attention from the instructor. "Chen, step forward," Williams called after watching her complete the sequence flawlessly on her first attempt. "Demonstrate that blocking sequence for the group." Maya moved to the center of the mat and repeated the defensive movements with mechanical precision. Her footwork was correct, her hand positioning was exact, and her transitions between techniques were smooth and controlled. The other recruits watched with a mixture of admiration and frustration as she made complex movements look effortless. "Outstanding," Williams nodded approvingly. "That's exactly the standard I want to see from everyone." Notice how recruit Chen maintains balance throughout the sequence and keeps her guard up between movements. But Maya's real test came when Williams paired her with Jennifer Walsh for sparring practice. Jennifer had been growing increasingly resentful of Maya's consistent excellence and saw this as an opportunity to prove that raw athleticism could overcome technical knowledge. As a former basketball player with significant height and weight advantages, Jennifer was confident she could dominate the smaller woman in physical competition. "Let's see how your book learning works against real opposition," Jennifer muttered as they faced each other on the practice mat, her voice low enough that the instructors couldn't hear but clear enough for nearby recruits to catch the hostile undertone. The sparring began with controlled techniques at quarter speed, allowing both participants to practice offensive and defensive movements safely. Maya maintained the same calm focus she had shown throughout training, treating Jennifer's aggression as simply another variable to manage, rather than a personal challenge to overcome. When Jennifer attempted to use her size advantage to overpower Maya's defenses, she discovered that technique and timing could neutralize raw strength. Maya's movements were economical and precise, redirecting Jennifer's force rather than meeting it head-on. She seemed to anticipate attacks before they were fully committed, positioning herself to counter effectively while maintaining perfect form. "Speed it up to half pace," Williams instructed, wanting to see how the techniques would translate under increased pressure.
Jennifer immediately tried to overwhelm Maya with aggressive attacks, hoping to catch her off guard with sudden intensity. Instead, she found herself repeatedly deflected, off-balanced, and maneuvered into disadvantageous positions. Maya's responses were so quick and smooth that they seemed almost automatic, as if she had been practicing these techniques for years rather than learning them for the first time. The culmination came when Jennifer, frustrated by her inability to land clean strikes, abandoned proper technique altogether and launched a wild haymaker punch intended to prove her physical superiority. Maya stepped inside the attack, used Jennifer's momentum against her, and executed a perfect hip throw that sent the larger woman tumbling across the mat in a controlled but decisive takedown. The gymnasium fell silent. Jennifer lay on her back, staring at the ceiling with an expression of shock and embarrassment. Maya stood in perfect ready position, showing no signs of exertion or emotional reaction to what had just occurred. She extended a hand to help Jennifer up, her expression concerned rather than triumphant. "Excellent demonstration of defensive principles," Williams said, breaking the silence. "Chen, you've just shown everyone how proper technique can overcome superior size and strength. Walsh, you've demonstrated why emotional control is essential in combat situations." Jennifer accepted Maya's offered assistance but avoided eye contact as she got to her feet. The incident had been witnessed by the entire recruit population, and Jennifer's attempt to embarrass Maya had backfired spectacularly. Instead of proving that Maya was all theory and no practical ability, the confrontation had demonstrated capabilities that went far beyond what anyone expected from a basic training recruit. The afternoon brought weapons training, another area where Maya's extensive preparation became apparent. While other recruits struggled with the basic mechanics of rifle operation, Maya handled the weapon with familiarity that suggested significant prior experience. Her grip was correct, her stance was text-perfect, and her understanding of safety procedures was comprehensive. During marksmanship instruction, the recruits were taught fundamental shooting principles and given their first opportunity to fire live ammunition. Most struggled with the coordination required to align sights, control breathing, and squeeze the trigger smoothly. Their initial target groups were scattered and inconsistent, reflecting the natural learning curve associated with precision shooting. Maya approached the firing line with calm confidence, assuming a shooting position that looked like it belonged in a training manual illustration. Her breathing was controlled, her sight alignment was precise, and her trigger control was smooth and consistent. When the range safety officer called for firing to commence, Maya's shots were methodical and deliberate. After the initial firing exercise, targets were retrieved and evaluated. Most recruits had managed to hit the target sporadically, with shot groups spread across large areas. A few of the more naturally gifted shooters had achieved respectable groupings for beginners. Maya's target showed something that made the range instructors exchange significant glances. A tight cluster of shots centered precisely in the bullseye, with accuracy that typically required months of training to achieve. "Chen, have you fired rifles before?" asked Sergeant First Class Martinez, the primary marksmanship instructor, as he examined her target with obvious interest. "I've done some reading about shooting techniques, Sergeant," Maya replied honestly, though her answer didn't capture the extent of her theoretical preparation. She had studied ballistics, breathing techniques, sight alignment principles, and trigger control methodologies with the same intensity she had applied to other military subjects. "Reading doesn't usually produce groups like this," Martinez observed, holding up the target for other recruits to see. "This is expert-level accuracy." Word of Maya's shooting performance spread quickly through the recruit population, adding to her growing reputation as someone who excelled at everything military. Some recruits were inspired by her example, working harder to match her standards. Others, particularly those in Jennifer Walsh's growing circle of critics, became more vocal in their suspicions about her background. "Nobody shoots like that without serious training," Jennifer complained to her supporters during evening personal time. "She's lying about something. Maybe she was in JROTC or went to some kind of military camp. She's trying to make the rest of us look like failures." These accusations created an undercurrent of tension that began affecting group dynamics. Maya was aware of the whispered conversations and suspicious glances, but she found herself in a difficult position. Denying her extensive preparation would be dishonest, but explaining the full extent of her self-directed military education
might sound boastful or unbelievable. The week's most significant challenge came in the form of the first leadership exercise, designed to identify recruits with potential for advancement and to test decision-making abilities under pressure. The scenario was a simulated tactical situation where teams of recruits had to navigate obstacles, solve problems, and accomplish objectives while dealing with time pressure and conflicting information. Maya found herself assigned as team leader for a group that included both supporters and skeptics. Her team consisted of Sarah Martinez, who had become genuinely supportive of Maya's success, Tommy Morrison, the farm boy who was struggling with many aspects of training, Marcus Johnson, who remained skeptical but was beginning to recognize Maya's abilities, and Jennifer Walsh, who had specifically requested assignment to Maya's team with obvious intentions of sabotaging her leadership opportunity. The exercise scenario involved navigating through a mock urban environment, gathering intelligence about simulated enemy positions, and developing a plan to neutralize threats while protecting civilian populations. The challenges were designed to test not just tactical thinking, but leadership skills, communication abilities, and the capacity to manage team dynamics under stress. Maya approached the exercise with the same methodical analysis she had applied to other challenges. She gathered her team for initial planning, clearly communicated the mission objectives, and assigned roles based on each member's strengths and capabilities. Her approach was collaborative rather than authoritarian, seeking input from team members while maintaining clear decision-making authority. "Sarah, you've shown good attention to detail," Maya said during the planning phase. "I want you handling navigation and keeping track of our progress against time constraints. Tommy, your size and strength make you ideal for handling equipment and providing security. Marcus, you've got good instincts about people. Help me assess the intelligence we gather." Jennifer's assignment was deliberately diplomatic. "Jennifer, I need you coordinating communications and serving as my backup for decision-making. Your experience with team sports gives you good situational awareness." The assignment acknowledged Jennifer's capabilities while placing her in a position where sabotage would be obvious and counterproductive. Maya had studied leadership psychology extensively and understood that managing difficult subordinates required careful balance between inclusion and control. As the exercise began, Maya's team moved through the urban environment with systematic efficiency. Her tactical decisions were sound, her communication was clear, and her ability to adapt to changing circumstances impressed both her team members and the evaluating instructors. She demonstrated understanding of military principles that typically required years of experience to develop. When the team encountered their first major obstacle, a simulated minefield that had to be crossed to reach their objective, Maya's response showcased both technical knowledge and innovative thinking. Instead of attempting the obvious direct route, she analyzed the tactical situation and identified an alternative approach that minimized risk while maintaining mission effectiveness. "Look at the patterns," she explained to her team, pointing to the marked minefield boundaries. "The placement suggests this is designed to channel movement towards specific kill zones. If we approach from the northeast instead of due north, we can use that drainage ditch for concealment and avoid the primary danger area." Her analysis was correct, and the team successfully navigated the obstacle, while other groups struggled with the more obvious approaches. Tommy Morrison, who had initially been skeptical of taking orders from someone smaller than himself, found himself genuinely impressed by Maya's tactical thinking. "How did you figure that out so fast?" he asked as they moved toward their next objective. "Pattern recognition," Maya replied simply. "Military tactics follow logical principles. Once you understand the thinking behind defensive positioning, you can usually identify the safe approaches." The exercise continued with increasingly complex challenges designed to test team cohesion and leadership decision-making. Maya's performance remained consistently exceptional, but more importantly, her leadership style brought out the best in her team members. Sarah's navigation skills improved under Maya's encouragement. Tommy gained confidence as his contributions were recognized and valued. Even Marcus, initially suspicious of Maya's abilities, found himself trusting her judgment and working harder to support team objectives. Jennifer, however, became increasingly frustrated as her attempts to undermine Maya's leadership were neutralized by competent planning and inclusive team management. When she tried to question tactical decisions, Maya responded with patient explanations that demonstrated clear reasoning. When she attempted to create conflict between team members, Maya diffused tensions through diplomatic problem-solving. The climax of the exercise came when Maya's team reached their final objective, a simulated enemy position that had to be neutralized without harming nearby civilians. The scenario was designed to test ethical decision-making under pressure, requiring leaders to balance mission accomplishment with moral constraints. Maya studied the tactical situation carefully, identifying enemy positions, civilian locations, and potential approaches. Her analysis was thorough and methodical, considering not just immediate tactical factors but longer-term strategic implications. When she announced her plan to the team, it demonstrated sophisticated understanding of both military principles and ethical constraints. "We have 3 enemy positions covering the main approach," she explained, sketching a quick diagram in the dirt. "Direct assault would likely result in civilian casualties, which violates both our rules of engagement and our moral obligations. Instead, we're going to use a coordinated distraction to draw enemy attention away from the civilian area, then neutralize the positions from multiple directions simultaneously." The plan required precise timing and coordination, but Maya's clear communication and confident leadership enabled her team to execute it flawlessly. They successfully completed the objective while adhering to all ethical constraints, demonstrating both tactical competence and moral reasoning. When the exercise concluded and teams were called back for evaluation, Maya's group was clearly exhausted but satisfied with their performance. Even Jennifer, despite her initial hostility, had to admit that Maya's leadership had been effective and fair. The team had accomplished all objectives ahead of schedule while maintaining unit cohesion and adhering to all safety and ethical guidelines. The formal evaluation session revealed the extent of Maya's exceptional performance. Instructor assessments praised her tactical thinking, leadership skills, communication abilities, and ethical decision-making. Her team members, when interviewed separately, provided unanimous positive feedback about her leadership style and effectiveness. In 15 years of conducting leadership exercises, the senior evaluator told Maya privately, "I've rarely seen such comprehensive understanding of military principles from a basic training recruit. Your performance suggests aptitude for advanced leadership responsibilities." However, Maya's continued excellence was beginning to create problems beyond simple jealousy from other recruits. Her capabilities were so far beyond normal expectations that some instructors were beginning to question whether standard basic training procedures were appropriate for someone with her apparent background and abilities. Staff Sergeant Kim approached Sergeant Rodriguez with concerns about Maya's placement in regular basic training. "She's operating at levels that exceed our advanced leadership course graduates," Kim observed. "We might be wasting her time and our resources by putting her through standard recruit training." "I've been thinking the same thing," Rodriguez admitted. "But we need to be careful about making assumptions. Exceptional performance in controlled training environments doesn't always translate to real-world military effectiveness. Let's see how she handles the really serious challenges before we make any recommendations for accelerated advancement." Those serious challenges were approaching rapidly. The following week would introduce night operations, survival training, and combat simulations designed to push recruits to their absolute physical and mental limits. For the first time since arriving at Fort Henderson, Maya would face situations where preparation and study might not be sufficient to ensure success. The stage was set for the most demanding phase of basic training, where Maya would discover whether her remarkable abilities could withstand the ultimate tests of military service. Her fellow recruits, instructors, and growing number of observers throughout the training command were all watching closely to see if the young woman who had mastered every challenge so far could continue to exceed expectations when faced with her greatest trials. The foundation of excellence had been firmly established, but the real test of character and capability was about to begin. Maya had proven she could excel in individual skills and lead others effectively. But military service ultimately required the ability to function under conditions that no amount of preparation could fully simulate. The next phase would reveal whether her exceptional abilities were truly as comprehensive as they appeared, or whether she would finally encounter challenges that would test her limits and reveal areas where improvement was needed. As the second week concluded, Maya remained focused on continuous improvement rather than celebrating past successes. She understood that each achievement simply raised expectations for future performance, and that military service would ultimately judge her not by individual accomplishments, but by her ability to contribute to mission success under the most demanding circumstances possible. The third week of basic training arrived with an ominous change in atmosphere at Fort Henderson. The drill instructor's demeanor shifted from challenging to genuinely demanding, and the training schedule revealed activities that would push every recruit far beyond their previous limits. Maya sensed the escalation immediately, recognizing that the real tests were about to begin. "This week separates the soldiers from the quitters," Sergeant Rodriguez announced to the assembled formation, his voice carrying an edge that hadn't been present in earlier training. "Night operations, survival training, and full combat simulations. Some of you will discover what you're truly capable of. Others will learn that military service requires more than good intentions and basic fitness." The first challenge came in the form of night navigation exercises conducted in dense woodland surrounding the training. Recruits were given minimal equipment, a compass, map, red-filtered flashlight, and basic survival supplies, then dropped at individual starting points with instructions to reach designated rally points using only their navigation skills and tactical movement techniques. The exercise was designed to test multiple capabilities simultaneously: land navigation under difficult conditions, individual initiative when separated from supervision, and the mental resilience required to function effectively when tired, stressed, and operating in unfamiliar environments. Most recruits struggled with the basic challenges of map reading and compass navigation, becoming lost within hours and requiring rescue by safety personnel. Maya approached the night navigation exercise with the same methodical preparation she had applied to previous challenges. However, this time her extensive theoretical knowledge faced its most demanding practical test. Reading about navigation techniques in library books was very different from implementing those skills while moving through thick forest in complete darkness. Before beginning movement, Maya spent several minutes analyzing her map and planning her route carefully. She identified terrain features that would serve as navigation checkpoints, calculated bearing and distance information for each leg of her journey, and developed contingency plans for potential obstacles or navigation errors. Her approach was systematic and professional, reflecting understanding of navigation principles that typically required extensive field experience to develop. As she moved through the dark forest, Maya discovered that her theoretical knowledge translated effectively to practical application, but with important modifications required by real-world conditions. Terrain that appeared manageable on the map proved challenging to navigate in darkness, forcing her to adjust planned routes and adapt to unexpected obstacles. Dead reckoning techniques that seemed straightforward in textbooks required constant recalculation based on actual travel time and conditions. Her progress through the night navigation course was steady and purposeful, but not without difficulties. She encountered dense undergrowth that forced significant detours, stream crossings that required careful evaluation of safety and equipment protection, and moments of uncertainty where terrain features didn't match her map interpretation exactly as expected. What distinguished Maya's performance was not the absence of problems, but her systematic approach to solving them. When she encountered obstacles, she methodically evaluated options, made calculated decisions, and adjusted her plans based on new information. Her movements were deliberate and controlled, avoiding the panicked rushing that caused many recruits to become hopelessly lost. After 6 hours of movement through challenging terrain, Maya reached her designated rally point exactly on schedule. She was the third recruit to complete the exercise successfully, arriving in good condition with accurate documentation of her route and clear understanding of lessons learned during the operation. "Outstanding navigation, Chen," commented Captain Morrison, the senior officer evaluating night operations performance. "Your route selection showed excellent judgment, and your time management was exemplary. Most importantly, you maintained tactical awareness throughout the exercise." Maya's successful completion of the night navigation exercise added to her growing reputation, but it also revealed something important about her capabilities. For the first time since arriving at basic training, she had faced genuine challenges that couldn't be overcome through preparation alone. Her success resulted from the ability to apply theoretical knowledge effectively under difficult practical conditions, demonstrating adaptability and problem-solving skills that couldn't be learned from books. The second major challenge of the week came in the form of survival training, conducted in a remote area designed to simulate hostile territory conditions. Recruits were organized into small teams, given minimal supplies, and tasked with surviving for 48 hours while accomplishing specific mission objectives. The exercise was designed to test physical endurance, technical skills, teamwork, and mental resilience under conditions of stress and discomfort. Maya found herself assigned to a team with 3 other recruits who represented a cross-section of personalities and capabilities. Her team included Danny Rodriguez, a quiet recruit from New Mexico who had struggled with physical training but showed good technical aptitude; Lisa Park, an urban recruit from Chicago who had excelled in classroom instruction but lacked practical outdoor experience; and Mike Turner, a former construction worker who possessed practical skills but had difficulty with military protocols and teamwork. The survival exercise began with the team being dropped at a remote location with limited supplies, basic shelter materials, minimal food, water purification tablets, first aid supplies, and mission instructions that required them to gather intelligence about simulated enemy positions while maintaining their own security and survival. Maya immediately recognized that success would depend on effective teamwork and the ability to leverage each team member's individual strengths while compensating for weaknesses. Her approach to team leadership was different from the previous leadership exercise, more collaborative and adaptive, recognizing that survival situations required flexibility and mutual support rather than rigid command structures. "Let's start by assessing our resources and capabilities," Maya suggested, gathering the team for initial planning. "Danny, you've got good technical skills. Help me evaluate our equipment and develop priorities for shelter construction. Lisa, your classroom knowledge is excellent. Work with me on map analysis and mission planning. Mike, your construction experience makes you our expert on practical building techniques." The team's first challenge was establishing an effective shelter before nightfall. The provided materials were minimal, requiring innovative construction techniques and careful resource management. Maya had studied survival shelter principles extensively, but implementing those concepts with limited materials and inexperienced team members proved more difficult than theoretical study had suggested. Mike's construction background proved invaluable in translating Maya's theoretical knowledge into practical building techniques. His understanding of structural principles and material properties enabled the team to construct a shelter that was both functional and efficient. Danny's attention to detail ensured that construction was precise and secure. Lisa contributed by organizing materials and maintaining security, while others focused on building. The shelter construction process revealed important dynamics about Maya's leadership style under stress. She maintained overall coordination and decision-making authority, but she actively sought input from team members and adapted plans based on their expertise and observations. Her approach was inclusive and collaborative, building team confidence while ensuring effective task completion. As darkness fell, the team's shelter provided adequate protection from weather conditions, but the real challenges were just beginning. The survival exercise required them to maintain security, gather intelligence about enemy positions, and manage limited food and water resources, while dealing with sleep deprivation and physical discomfort. Maya organized the team into a rotation schedule that provided continuous security while allowing rest for individual team members. Her watch schedules were carefully planned to optimize security coverage, while ensuring that each person got adequate rest to maintain effectiveness. Her approach to resource management was systematic and fair, with clear protocols for food and water distribution that prevented conflicts and maintained team morale. During her own security watch periods, Maya demonstrated exceptional ability to maintain alertness and awareness despite fatigue and discomfort. Her observation skills were sharp, her attention to detail was constant, and her ability to interpret sounds and movements in the dark forest showed understanding of tactical principles that typically required extensive field experience to develop. The intelligence gathering portion of the mission required the team to identify and document simulated enemy positions without being detected. Maya developed a reconnaissance plan that leveraged each team member's capabilities while minimizing risk of compromise. Danny's quiet movement skills made him ideal for close observation. Lisa's analytical abilities enabled effective documentation of intelligence information. Mike's practical experience helped identify realistic approaches to target areas. Maya's own role in reconnaissance operations revealed capabilities that surprised both her teammates and evaluating instructors. Her movement through difficult terrain was virtually silent, her observation skills were exceptionally sharp, and her ability to gather and document intelligence information was thorough and professional. She demonstrated understanding of reconnaissance principles and techniques that suggested extensive study and natural aptitude for tactical operations. The team's intelligence gathering mission was completely successful, with detailed documentation of all enemy positions and accurate assessment of their capabilities and defensive preparations. More importantly, they accomplished the mission without compromise, maintaining their own security while gathering information that would be valuable for future operations. As the survival exercise continued into its second day, physical and mental stress began affecting all team members. Food supplies were limited, sleep was inadequate, and constant security requirements created ongoing tension and fatigue. These conditions were designed to test individual resilience and team cohesion under realistic stress levels. Maya's leadership during this phase demonstrated remarkable maturity and understanding of human psychology under stress. She recognized signs of fatigue and discouragement in her teammates before they became serious problems, providing encouragement and support that maintained team morale and effectiveness. Her own performance remained consistently high despite the same stressors affecting everyone else. "Remember why we're here," she told the team during a particularly difficult period when everyone was tired, hungry, and discouraged. "This training is preparing us for situations where people's lives will depend on our ability to function effectively under stress. Every challenge we overcome here makes us better soldiers and better people." Her motivational approach was personal rather than generic, addressing each team member's specific concerns and drawing on their individual strengths to build confidence. She helped Danny recognize that his quiet competence was valuable and respected. She encouraged Lisa to trust her analytical skills and contribute more actively to tactical planning. She channeled Mike's frustration into productive energy for completing mission requirements. The survival exercise culminated with an unexpected challenge designed to test team adaptation to changing circumstances. The teams were notified that their extraction point had been compromised and they needed to move to an alternative location while avoiding simulated enemy patrols that were actively searching for them. This phase of the exercise required integration of all skills developed during basic training: navigation, tactical movement, teamwork, decision-making under pressure, and physical endurance when already fatigued and stressed. Many teams struggled with the additional complexity, becoming confused or making tactical errors that resulted in simulated capture or mission failure. Maya's team approached the changed situation with systematic analysis and adaptive planning. She quickly evaluated new intelligence about enemy patrol patterns, identified alternative routes to the extraction point, and developed movement plans that balanced speed with security. Her tactical thinking was sophisticated and professional, demonstrating understanding of principles that typically required extensive combat experience to master. The movement to the alternative extraction point required 12 hours of careful navigation through terrain actively patrolled by opposing forces. Maya's team successfully avoided detection while maintaining good progress toward their objective, demonstrating excellent tactical discipline and teamwork under realistic stress conditions. When they reached the extraction point exactly on schedule, Maya's team was tired but successful, having completed all mission objectives while maintaining team cohesion and individual effectiveness throughout the exercise. Their performance was exceptional by any standard, but particularly impressive considering their limited experience and the demanding nature of the challenges they had faced. The formal evaluation of the survival exercise revealed the extent of Maya's continued exceptional performance, but also highlighted the development of her teammates under her leadership. Danny, Lisa, and Mike had all performed significantly better than their previous capabilities suggested, indicating that Maya's leadership style brought out the best in others rather than simply showcasing her own abilities. "Your team's performance was outstanding," the evaluating officer told Maya during the post-exercise debrief. "More importantly, you demonstrated leadership qualities that enabled your teammates to exceed their own expectations. That's the mark of genuine military leadership potential." However, Maya's continued excellence was creating complications beyond normal training concerns. Her capabilities were now so clearly exceptional that senior officers throughout the training command were beginning to discuss her case at levels well above normal recruit management. Questions were being raised about appropriate career paths, advanced training opportunities, and whether standard military development processes were suitable for someone with her apparent aptitudes. Colonel Harrison, the installation commander, requested a comprehensive evaluation of Maya's performance and potential. "I've been hearing remarkable reports about this recruit," he told his training staff. "Exceptional performance is always welcome, but we need to understand what we're dealing with and how best to develop these capabilities for maximum benefit to the service." The evaluation process would involve comprehensive testing of Maya's abilities across all military competency areas, psychological assessment to determine optimal career path recommendations, and interviews with instructors and fellow recruits to develop complete understanding of her leadership potential and character. Meanwhile, Maya remained focused on continuous improvement and service to her fellow recruits. She understood that exceptional individual performance was meaningless unless it contributed to overall mission success and unit effectiveness. Her goal was not personal recognition, but the development of capabilities that would enable her to serve effectively in whatever role the military determined would best utilize her talents. The week concluded with combat simulation exercises that would test integration of all skills developed during basic training. These exercises represented the closest approximation to actual combat conditions that could be safely conducted during initial training, requiring recruits to function effectively as part of larger units while dealing with simulated enemy opposition and realistic battlefield conditions. Maya approached these final challenges with the same systematic preparation and adaptive execution that had characterized her performance throughout basic training. She understood that success in combat simulations required not just individual competence, but the ability to function effectively as part of a team under conditions that stressed every aspect of military training. The stage was set for the ultimate test of Maya's remarkable abilities, where she would discover whether her exceptional performance could contribute to mission success under conditions that closely approximated the realities of military service. The combat simulations would reveal whether her talents could be effectively integrated with others to accomplish objectives that required coordinated team effort rather than individual excellence. Everything she had learned, practiced, and mastered during basic training would be put to the ultimate test in scenarios designed to separate those ready for military service from those who needed additional development. For Maya, it represented the culmination of years of preparation and weeks of intensive training. The moment when theoretical knowledge and practical skills would be tested under conditions that demanded nothing less than complete competence and absolute dedication to mission success. The final week of basic training arrived with an atmosphere of anticipation and nervous energy that permeated every aspect of Fort Henderson. The combat simulation exercises represented the culmination of 12 weeks of intensive preparation, designed to test whether recruits had successfully transformed from civilians into soldiers capable of serving effectively in military operations. Maya understood the significance of these final challenges more clearly than most of her fellow recruits. Her extensive study of military history and training methodologies had taught her that combat simulations served as the ultimate validation of basic training effectiveness. Success required integration of all individual skills into coordinated team performance under conditions that closely approximated the stress and complexity of actual military operations. The week began with comprehensive briefings about the simulation scenarios, rules of engagement, and evaluation criteria that would determine graduation eligibility. Colonel Harrison himself addressed the assembled recruits, emphasizing the importance of these final exercises and the standards they would need to meet. For the past 11 weeks, you've been learning individual skills and basic military competencies, the colonel announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had led soldiers in actual combat operations. This week, you'll demonstrate whether those skills can be integrated into effective team performance under realistic operational conditions. Maya listened intently as the simulation scenarios were explained, her analytical mind immediately beginning to process tactical considerations and potential challenges. The exercises would involve company-sized operations against simulated enemy forces, requiring coordination between multiple teams and integration of various military specialties, including infantry tactics, communications, medical support, and logistics coordination. The first major simulation was an urban warfare scenario set in a mock city constructed specifically for training purposes. The facility featured realistic buildings, civilian population areas, and complex terrain that required sophisticated tactical planning and careful execution to achieve objectives while minimizing collateral damage. Maya found herself assigned as a team leader within 2nd Platoon, responsible for a squad of 8 recruits representing diverse backgrounds and capabilities. Her team included several recruits who had struggled during earlier training phases, as well as some who had performed consistently well. The assignment was clearly designed to test her leadership abilities under realistic conditions, where success would depend on maximizing the effectiveness of average performers rather than simply showcasing individual excellence. Her squad members included Tommy Morrison, who had gradually improved throughout training but still struggled with confidence under pressure. Sarah Martinez, who had developed into a reliable and competent soldier. Marcus Johnson, who possessed good instincts but sometimes questioned authority. Jennifer Walsh, who had eventually accepted Maya's capabilities but maintained subtle resentment about their relative performance levels. And 4 other recruits representing various skill levels and personality types. The urban warfare scenario required Maya's squad to advance through a section of the mock city, neutralize specific enemy positions, and secure key infrastructure while protecting civilian populations and coordinating with adjacent units. The mission parameters were complex and realistic, requiring constant adaptation to changing tactical situations and integration with larger unit operations. Maya began mission preparation with detailed analysis of available intelligence, terrain evaluation, and assessment of her squad's capabilities and limitations. Her planning process was thorough and professional, involving all squad members in discussions about tactical approaches while maintaining clear decision-making authority for final plans. Sarah, your accuracy with the squad automatic weapon makes you our primary suppression specialist, Maya explained during the planning session, assigning roles based on individual strengths.
Tommy, your size and determination are perfect for point man responsibilities. Marcus, I need you covering our left flank and watching for civilian movement patterns.
Jennifer, you'll be my backup leader and coordinate with adjacent squads. Her approach to mission planning demonstrated sophisticated understanding of small unit tactics and leadership principles. She considered not just immediate tactical requirements, but broader strategic objectives, and the psychological factors that would influence individual performance under stress. Her plans were detailed enough to provide clear guidance, but flexible enough to allow adaptation as situations developed. When the urban warfare simulation began, Maya's squad moved through the mock city with systematic precision that impressed observing instructors. Their movement techniques were coordinated and professional. Their tactical discipline was excellent, and their adaptation to changing situations demonstrated effective leadership and training integration. The squad's first major challenge came when they encountered a simulated enemy position that commanded key terrain and blocked their assigned route of advance. The position was well defended and positioned to inflict significant casualties on any direct assault. Maya quickly evaluated the tactical situation and developed an alternative approach that leveraged her squad's capabilities while minimizing risk. Instead of attempting a frontal assault, Maya coordinated with adjacent units to develop a flanking maneuver that would neutralize the enemy position through coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Her plan required precise timing and communication, but it offered the best combination of effectiveness and squad member safety. Marcus, I need you to coordinate with 3rd Squad for suppression fire from the east. Maya communicated through tactical radio procedures, her voice calm and professional despite the simulated combat stress. Sarah, position your weapon to cover the main avenue of approach. Tommy, you and I will move around the north side once suppression is established. The coordinated assault was executed flawlessly, with Maya's squad contributing effectively to a larger unit operation that successfully neutralized the enemy position without casualties. Her tactical thinking had been sound, her coordination with other units had been professional, and her squad's performance had demonstrated excellent training and leadership. As the urban warfare simulation continued, Maya's squad encountered increasingly complex challenges that tested every aspect of their preparation and teamwork. They successfully cleared several buildings of enemy forces, protected civilian evacuation routes, and maintained communication with higher headquarters while adapting to rapidly changing tactical situations. Maya's performance during these challenges was exceptional, but equally impressive was the way her leadership brought out improved performance from squad members who had struggled during earlier training. Tommy gained confidence as his contributions were recognized and valued. Sarah's technical competence flourished under Maya's supportive leadership style. Even Jennifer began contributing more effectively as she realized that squad success required cooperation rather than individual competition. The climax of the urban warfare simulation came when Maya's platoon was tasked with assaulting a heavily defended building that represented the final enemy stronghold in their sector. The mission required coordination between multiple squads, integration of supporting elements, and sophisticated tactical planning to minimize casualties while achieving mission success. Maya found herself selected as the assault team leader, responsible for coordinating the efforts of multiple squads in what would be the most complex tactical operation of basic training. The selection reflected instructor confidence in her tactical abilities and leadership skills, but it also placed enormous responsibility on her shoulders for the success or failure of the operation. Her planning for the final assault demonstrated mastery of advanced tactical principles that typically required years of military experience to develop. She analyzed the target building's defensive positions, identified potential assault routes, coordinated with supporting elements including simulated artillery and medical support, and developed contingency plans for various scenarios that might develop during the operation. First Squad will establish suppression positions on the east side. Maya briefed the assembled assault force, her confidence and competence evident to both fellow recruits and evaluating instructors. Second Squad advances from the south once suppression is established. Third Squad provides security and handles any civilian complications. Medical team positions here for rapid casualty evacuation. The assault operation was executed with precision that exceeded instructor expectations for basic training graduates. Maya's coordination was flawless, her tactical decisions were sound, and her leadership inspired exceptional performance from all participating recruits. The enemy position was neutralized quickly and efficiently, with no simulated casualties and complete achievement of mission objectives. When the urban warfare simulation concluded, Maya's overall performance had been exceptional by every measure. Her individual tactical skills were outstanding, her leadership abilities were exceptional, and most importantly, her capacity to integrate individual excellence with team effectiveness had been proven under realistic operational conditions. Outstanding performance, Recruit Chen, Colonel Harrison told her during the post-exercise evaluation. Your tactical thinking, leadership skills, and ability to integrate with larger unit operations demonstrate readiness for advanced military responsibilities. However, Maya's most significant challenge still lay ahead. The final exercise of basic training was a comprehensive field operation that would test all military skills under conditions designed to simulate the stress and complexity of actual deployment operations. The exercise would last 72 hours and would require sustained performance under conditions of sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and constant pressure. The field exercise scenario involved a company-sized operation in a remote training area, with missions that included reconnaissance, defensive operations, offensive assaults, and logistical support under simulated combat conditions. Recruits would be tested on their ability to function effectively as part of larger military units while maintaining individual competence under extreme stress. Maya approached the final field exercise with complete focus and determination. She understood that this represented the culmination of not just basic training but years of personal preparation for military service. Everything she had studied, practiced, and mastered would be tested under conditions that would reveal whether her exceptional capabilities could contribute to mission success under the most demanding circumstances. The field exercise began with a night insertion into hostile territory, requiring advanced navigation skills and tactical movement techniques under conditions of complete darkness and simulated enemy opposition. Maya's squad was tasked with establishing reconnaissance positions and gathering intelligence about enemy capabilities and intentions. Her performance during the night insertion was flawless, demonstrating mastery of advanced military skills that impressed even veteran instructors. Her navigation was precise, her tactical movement was virtually silent, and her observation and reporting of intelligence information was thorough and professional. As the field exercise continued over the next 72 hours, Maya faced every conceivable military challenge under conditions designed to test human limits of endurance and performance. She led reconnaissance missions, participated in defensive operations, coordinated logistical support, and served in various leadership roles as the tactical situation demanded. Throughout the extended operation, Maya's performance remained consistently exceptional, despite sleep deprivation, physical exhaustion, and constant stress. Her tactical decisions were sound, her leadership was inspiring, and her technical competence never wavered. More importantly, her ability to function effectively as part of larger military operations was proven beyond any doubt. The field exercise culminated with a final assault operation that required integration of all military skills and coordination between multiple units. Maya found herself assigned as the overall operation commander, responsible for coordinating the efforts of an entire company in what represented the most complex military operation of basic training. Her planning and execution of the final assault demonstrated military competence that exceeded the expectations of every observer. Her tactical thinking was sophisticated, her coordination was flawless, and her leadership inspired exceptional performance from every participating recruit. The operation was completely successful, achieving all objectives ahead of schedule with no casualties. When the field exercise concluded and the company was assembled for final evaluation, Maya's overall performance had established new standards for basic training excellence. She had not only mastered every individual skill, but had demonstrated exceptional ability to integrate those skills into effective team performance under the most demanding conditions. Colonel Harrison's final evaluation was unprecedented in its scope and significance. Recruit Chen, your performance during basic training has been exceptional by every measure, he announced before the assembled company. You have demonstrated mastery of military skills, outstanding leadership abilities, and exceptional character under the most demanding conditions. The formal graduation ceremony took place the following week, with families and friends gathered to witness the transformation of civilians into soldiers. Maya stood with her fellow graduates, proud of what they had accomplished together, but already focused on the advanced training and greater responsibilities that lay ahead. Her exceptional performance during basic training had earned her selection for advanced leadership development programs and specialized training opportunities that would prepare her for rapid advancement within military ranks. Officers from various career fields had requested her assignment to their units, recognizing the exceptional capabilities she had demonstrated. As Maya received her graduation certificate and military occupational specialty assignment, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from her grandmother's laundromat to this moment of achievement. Years of preparation, months of intensive training, and countless hours of study and practice had culminated in recognition as one of the most exceptional recruits in the history of Fort Henderson. But Maya understood that graduation from basic training represented not an ending, but a beginning. The military career that lay ahead would present challenges and opportunities that would test her capabilities in ways that basic training could only begin to prepare her for. Her exceptional performance had established high expectations that she would need to meet throughout her service. Her fellow graduates, including many who had initially been skeptical or resentful of her exceptional abilities, gathered around her after the ceremony to express genuine appreciation for her leadership and support during their shared transformation. Even Jennifer Walsh offered sincere congratulations and acknowledgement of Maya's positive influence on their group. "You made all of us better soldiers," Jennifer said, her earlier resentment replaced by genuine respect. "I hope we serve together again sometime." Maya's response reflected the humility and service orientation that had characterized her approach throughout basic training. "We all made each other better," she replied. "That's what military service is about. Individual excellence contributing to team success." As the graduation ceremonies concluded and new soldiers prepared to depart for their first duty assignments, Maya looked forward to the next phase of her military career, with the same systematic preparation and dedication that had enabled her exceptional performance during basic training. She understood that her real test as a soldier would come not in training environments, but in operational assignments, where her capabilities would contribute to missions that served larger purposes than personal achievement. The young woman who had arrived at Fort Henderson as an unknown recruit with exceptional but unproven abilities was departing as a graduate with established credentials for advanced leadership and specialized training. Her journey from civilian to soldier had been remarkable, but Maya understood that her most significant contributions to military service still lay ahead. The foundation had been built through years of preparation and months of intensive training. Now the real work of military service could begin, with Maya ready to contribute her exceptional capabilities to whatever challenges and opportunities the future would bring. Her transformation was complete, but her service was just beginning.